Welcome you all to another session of economics, and for those of you who are new to this channel, I'm Shiva. The topic we are going to cover today is production analysis. The main objectives of this topic is to help us understand the various factors of production and its characteristics, to understand what is short-run production and what is long-run production, and finally to understand the concept of supply. In today's session, we are going to see what is production, what are the features of different factors of production, namely land, labor, capital, and organization, and we'll see about what is production function. First, what is production? A production is a process of using various material and immaterial inputs in order to make output that is used for consumption. A production is a process which creates economic well-being, and a production is the result of the cooperation of four different factors of production, which are land, labor, capital, and organization. In economics, production is a process that is referred to the creation or addition of value. It simply transforms any input into output. The scale of production influences the cost of production in any economy. When production of a commodity takes place on a very large scale, the average cost of production becomes lower, and this creates a possibility of bringing products to the market at very low prices. Now we'll move on to the features of different factors of production. Factors of production means resources used in the process of production of commodities. First, we'll see what is primary factors of production. The first one is land. Land represents any natural resource such as soil, mineral deposits, seas, rivers, natural forests, and fisheries. And the labor represents human resources. These two, that is land and labor, together is called as primary factors of production. These two factors of production produces some units of goods for the purpose of consumption. Some of these goods are left over. Thus, a savings is production minus consumption. Savings is also called as capital, which serves as investment in the production process. Organization or enterprise is a special form of labor. Now we move on to land. The first one in the factors of production is land, and this land is one of the two primary factors of production. Land means all gifts of nature owned and controlled by human beings which yield an income. Land is the original source of all material wealth. The economic prosperity of a country depends on the richness of her natural resources. All economic aspects of economic life, like agriculture, trade, and industry, are generally influenced by natural resources, which are called as land in economics. Now we move on to the characteristics of land. As we have seen before, land is a primary factor of production, and it is also known as passive because land on its own does not do any work. It is not an active factor of production. Instead, humans act on those land and they try to get some output from it. Land is a free gift of nature, and land has no cost of production, and this is fixed in supply and it is inelastic in supply. Land is permanent and is also immovable. Land is heterogeneous, which means different land, that is different areas of land, differs in their fertility. Land has alternative uses, and finally land is subject to law of diminishing returns. Next we move on to the second factor of production, which is known as labor. Labor means manual or unskilled labor in common parlance. In economics, it is different. In economics, labor refers to any work undertaken for securing an income or a reward. Such work may be manual labor or intellectual labor. Some examples of manual labor are agricultural worker, cook, a rickshaw puller who does not need any specific set of skills but only their ability to do some work. Some examples of intellectual labor are doctors, teachers, and engineers. According to Alfred Marshall, labor represents services provided by the laborer which helps in yielding an income to the owner of the labor power. Now we will see the different characteristics of labor. Labors are animate, which means labor do some work. They are active in nature. And once again, this is also one of the primary factors of production. Labor is perishable, which means labor can provide you with factors of production only for a certain period of time. When laborers get old, they'll not be able to work for companies. Labor is inseparable from the laborer. We can't separate the amount of work done by a labor from that person itself. So that is why it's being said that labor is inseparable from the laborer. Labor is less mobile between places and occupations, which means labor is concentrated in the areas where occupations is available for them. Labor is a means as well as an end. That is, labor is a producer as well as the final consumer. Labor units are heterogeneous, which means different labor individuals possess different abilities. Labor supply determines its rewards or wages, and these laborers have a very weak bargaining power. Now we move on to the third factors of production, which is capital. Alfred Marshall says capital consists of all kinds of wealth other than free gifts of nature which yield income. Eugen Ritter von Baumberg defines capital as a produced means of production. Capital refers to secondary means of production which represents savings used as investment in the further production process. For example, consider a mango. The entire mango is not eaten. Only part of that is used to eat and the remaining part is used to produce more mangoes. That is why it is being said here that capital refers secondary means of production which represents savings used as investment in the further production process. And also capital is a stock concept. What is a stock concept? A stock concept is something that is mentioned at a point of time. It is not a flow concept, which means something that is measured over a period of time. In stock concept, we measure only at a point of time instead of over a period of time. All capital is wealth, but all wealth is not capital. For example, a tractor can be used for cultivation production on a farm, but if due to some reason the same is kept unused for some period of time, it cannot be termed as capital for that period. For that period of time where the tractor is not working, it is only considered as a wealth. Financial capital means the assets needed by a firm to provide goods and services measured in terms of money value. Now, moving on to the different characteristics of capital. Capital is a man-made factor. It is mobile between places and persons, and it is a passive factor of production. Capital supply is elastic, capital's demand is derived demand, and it is durable, it yields income, it depreciates, and finally it can be tangible or intangible. For instance, tangible capital can be machineries, factories, inventories, or highways. Intangible capital can be advertisements, expenses, or any services provided by different individuals. Next, we move on to the final factors of production known as organization. An organizer or an entrepreneur is the man behind organizing the business. An organizer is the most important factor of production, and he is a special kind of labor. According to Joseph Schumpeter, entrepreneur innovates, coordinates other factors of production, plans and runs a business. He not only runs the business but also bears the risk of the business. An organizer's reward is residual, and this residual reward can either be profit or loss, or it can also be zero. Now, moving on to the different functions of an organizer or an entrepreneur. The first one is initiation. An organizer decides the situation and availability of resources, and based on that he plans the entire process of business or production. The second one is innovation. He introduces new methods in the production process. The third function of an organizer or an entrepreneur is to coordinate between different factors of production to start and run the business or production. The fourth one is control, direction and supervision. The organizer has to control the organization to achieve the goal as set by him. He needs to direct the factors of production to get better results, and he supervises for the efficient functioning of all factors of production. The final function of an organizer or an entrepreneur is risk taking and bearing the uncertainties. Risks may be insured, but uncertainties cannot be insured. They reduce the profit of the company. And these are all some of the major functions of an organizer or an entrepreneur. Now we move on to what is called as a production function. A production function refers to the relationship among units of the different factors of production, which is the input and the resultant quantity of good produced, which is the output. A production function is the relationship between input of productive services per unit of time and output of product per unit of time. This definition of production function was given by George J. Stigler. In mathematical terms, Q, which is quantity of commodity produced, is a function of N, which is land, L, which is labor, K, which is capital, and T, also known as technology. This is the production function equation in mathematical terms. With this, we come to the end of today's session, and in the coming slide, I mentioned some of the important questions from the topics covered today. Thank you.